So if everyone can come in. So I'm Scott Fernquist. I'm one of the directors of the Green Business Partnership, along with my partner here, Danny Glazer. Danny, give a wave. Danny. One of 3 directors of the program. So we're so excited you're here today. This is the 4th year of Leaders in Sustainability Speaker Series events here at the beautiful Gateway Center. This is a LEED Gold facility, and we really want to thank our host, Westchester Community College, for having us here. So to get things started, we are going to be talking about solar today and do a really deep dive into the topic. We've never done a program just on solar, so it's very exciting. And to get things started, we're going to invite up our program partner, Marcia Gordon, President and CEO of the Business Council. Thank you.
Okay, so it's solar, so let's all have sunny faces on, even if it's not so sunny today. But September, to me, is a great new start to the year. How appropriate that we're here at Westchester Community College, our college in Westchester. And Terry, thank you so much for hosting us. It's a very special partnership we have with WCC. I know many of you have been part of our Green Business Program for many years. And, you know, as the program matures and develops, and Danny and Scott do such an unbelievable job of promoting this program, not only in Westchester and the Hudson Valley, but throughout New York State and throughout the country, actually. We've learned so much. But one thing that we've said at the beginning is that green business is about economic development. And it's about sustainability, it's about having great communities, and it's about having businesses that have the right values. And it helps attract young people, helps attract and retain employees, and it's the kind of companies that people want to work. So I know a lot of you are in the green business space. A lot of you are in businesses that care about sustainability. And on behalf of the Business Council of Westchester, I want to thank you for your participation and for your commitment. And we've had great partners, great sponsors. We thank all of them, especially Con Edison and Jane, and learn a lot today. So enjoy, and we'll see you at our other events throughout the year. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Marcia. Is Peter McCart here? I don't think so. Okay. So we're going to invite up now Jane Solnick, who's the Director of Public Affairs, Westchester, from Con Edison, just to say hello to all of you.
Thank you, Scott, and good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. Some of you have been here before, and others who haven't. It's good to see you here. I got to talk to a couple of people outside about some exciting solar stuff they're doing. For those of you who have not been here before, because I know the others have heard me, people often wonder, why is Con Edison involved in this? Con Edison is very interested in our community staying sustainable. You don't want us building more infrastructure in your backyard, and we want to be doing renewables. So it's with your assistance that we can get there. As a utility, we can transport it for you, but as a partnership, we can work together. And with that being said, working with the Green Business Challenge, excuse me, the name got changed. The Green Business Partnership, Con Edison was involved with this organization since the inception. And we're delighted to say that it's been a wonderful partnership between a public-private partnership between the Business Council, Westchester County, and Con Edison. So we appreciate the support that you give us, and we look forward to working with you. We're all advancing, and actually solar, I see lots of new faces today. So we are getting involved in it. I have 2 gentlemen who are here with me today that are from our solar group, and they also can talk to you about distribution generation if anybody wants. They were out at the table. I see, if you could just raise your hand, he's in there in the back. I thought I saw him a minute ago, but they're outside, so please stop by and see them. Thank you. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, Jane. Terry Wiesel is the VP of Workforce Development and Community Education here at Westchester Community College. I'd like to welcome her up now.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of all of my colleagues at Westchester Community College, in particular Dr. Miles, our president, I want to welcome you all here this morning. Some of you have been here before for other sessions of the speaker series, and thank Danny and Scott, who have included the college from the very beginning when we were the Green Business Challenge through to the Green Business Partnership. Why are we so happy to be part of this series and be part of the work that's led by the Green Business Partnership? For me, it's very clear. We are training and educating the future workforce, not just in our programs in energy systems and sustainability and the sciences, but really in every one of our programs, from our liberal arts programs in psychology through to our business programs, accountants and business managers and future leaders in our community and our ecosystem, and we are working very hard to embed sustainability at every level so that when we graduate young people and adults from Westchester Community College, they are leaving here with a firm understanding of their role in building a sustainable county and region for their own good and for the economic development of all of us. I invite any of you to look on our website. Under our, there is a link for sustainability. Our initiatives go from ride-share programs for our students through to credit and non-credit offerings, as well as the sustainable efforts that we put into all of our buildings, not just this Gateway Center, which is, as Scott said, Gold LEED certified, but all of our other buildings. Remote power units, solar panels in many of our buildings, lighting, toilets that flush, etc. So I thank you for coming here today. I welcome you to become more involved in the college. Think about our graduates and our students as your interns, as your future employees, and as contributing members of this county. Thank you.
Terry, I think you took my notes. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Terry. Every time I come here, I want to go back to school. It's great. I know. I can actually do that for free because I'm a county employee, so thank you so much. All right, before we bring up our solar experts, I just want to quickly give everyone an introduction to the Green Business Partnership in case you're not familiar with who we are. So as we've already said, this is a public-private partnership. The Business Council of Westchester is the lead partner with support from Westchester County and Green Team Spirit, which is Danny Glazer's company, which provides the intellectual property and the tools to the program. We thank our host once again, Westchester Community College, for having us here today. And these are our sponsors. Con Edison, as Jane said, has been a platinum sponsor since day one. It's been 10 years, if you can believe it. NYSERDA, we received a large grant from them back in 2014, which has really allowed us to grow the program. Westchester Community Foundation is also a platinum sponsor, and you can see the others here. And what's really nice is most of these companies are also certified members of the program, so they are also actively engaged in making their organizations more sustainable through the Green Business Partnership. We have a wonderful partnership with the New York Library Association. We're actually the official benchmarking platform for their NYLA Sustainability Initiative, which is a statewide program. We now have between 30 and 40 library members in our program from all over the state, so it's really been a great way for us to grow the program statewide. So just in a nutshell, what is the Green Business Partnership? We are comprehensive. We're a holistic green business certification program that helps any organization measurably decrease their environmental impact, resulting in improved efficiency, reduced costs, a more engaged workforce, and a healthier workplace. So these are the benefits we like to talk about when we talk to companies. Every company comes to us for different reasons, but the main reasons and benefits that we feel companies should go green are first and foremost to reduce your impact on the environment, save money and build your business because you're becoming more efficient, you're becoming more lean. It makes business sense to go green. And also companies like to get recognized and certified for their efforts to help tell their story to the rest of the world to inspire others to also become green. So we think it's a pretty straightforward and simple process. Not all of our companies would agree, but we are very proud of that. We've been able to streamline and make this process as easy as possible by moving the entire program to the website. So really, you can join online today at greenbusinesspartnership.org if you're not already a member. You can access and customize your company's dashboard. It becomes a collaborative space where you can invite employees to participate and help you on your journey to become certified. We really promote collaboration and input from all employees by conducting a survey. You complete required actions in a green action list, a greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and finally you summarize what you've accomplished with the final presentation to become certified. In a nutshell. If you want more information about all of this, we can of course provide it, and you can go to our website. So to date, these are our certified members. We're very proud of these members, and what we always like to point out with this slide is that these companies represent all sectors of the economy in New York State. We have hospitals, hotels, nonprofits, colleges, universities, libraries, small retail, energy companies. It really runs the gamut, so it's really nice representation of the diversity of the economy here in Westchester and New York State. So just quickly, these are the areas that we focus on. So when we say comprehensive or holistic, this is what we're talking about. So we don't just focus on energy or water, we focus on all areas that we feel are necessary to address when your company is becoming green business certified. So organizational commitment, energy, materials management, transportation, land use, and water. So as Marcia said, and we've alluded to, we are growing statewide. It's very exciting. That's part of the reason we got the grant from New York State, because they really wanted this program to not only be a Westchester program, but to be a statewide program. And with our new tools, this is easier than ever for us to do. So we're actively seeking partnerships around the state. We are talking to colleges and universities around the state to train interns and help us really replicate the program and move it in all corners of this great state of ours. So just quickly, besides this series, which we do 4 times a year, we also do members-only lunch and learns, so it's more collaborative work sessions for our members. We host industry forums, really focused on growing the program through industry cooperation. We train interns 3 or 4 times a year, I can't remember, but it's been a really growing program where we actively train interns, and many of them are here today, which is awesome to see. On the program, they're then placed with companies and help them become certified. They're given great skills that they can apply to any job in the future, and we really help promote green career pathways for local college students. When a company gets certified, we have a big ceremony typically, and these are great events where we can really celebrate the hard work and the accomplishments of our companies. And every year we do give awards in all of the categories that we focus on. This is from the 2018 ceremony at Factoria, and you can see who the award winners here. So this goes really hand in hand with our goal, which is to really celebrate and put up on a pedestal the companies that are going above and beyond. So just shifting to the focus of today's event, solar. We just want to say there's a lot going on in solar. We know that this is a shifting target for many companies, but there's great opportunities that are out there. A lot of our companies are already involved in solar. This is, you can see Danny and Yana from our program up on a roof with Jim Diamond when they cut the ribbon on one of the largest solar arrays in New York. It's in Mount Kisco, above Grand Prix, if you know those buildings in Mount Kisco. Strauss Paper installed solar. It's covering around 86% of their electricity usage. We've got Jill Davis and the Hendrick Hudson Library with Doug Hertz, who's going to be speaking to us shortly in front of an informational screen they put up in the library to educate people about the solar system on their roof, which is really great. Atlantic Westchester, we have many other companies that have gone solar or are exploring it. We just didn't want to put them on this slide, but the point is it's a great option for many businesses, and we just look forward to learning more from all of our speakers today. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who's Nina Orville. And Nina is the principal at her company, Abundant Efficiency. And I'm just going to quickly introduce you and read your bio. So Nina creates and implements innovative solutions to environmental and business challenges for local governments, businesses, and organizations. Specializing in public-private initiatives that generate environmental and economic development benefits, Abundant Efficiency administers and implements the Solarize Westchester program, a partner in the Mid-Hudson Streetlight Consortium, and is developing a community solar and clean heat program in partnership with Sustainable Westchester. Previously, as founding executive director of SWEAC, or the Southern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, Nina contributed to the formation of Sustainable Westchester, the successor organization to SWEAC. Early in her career, Ms. Orville was a member of the management team of a $40 million community development venture capital fund. She holds a BA from Oberlin College and an MBA from Columbia. So welcome, Nina. So it's just this.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, good morning, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here and so grateful to the Green Business Partnership for creating these opportunities for those of us who work in the sustainability field, or those of you who are looking for solutions to bring back to your companies and organizations to come together on a regular basis. And I applaud and I thank you for your important work that enriches everything that we all do and helps to move us all forward. So thank you to Danny and Scott. You already heard a few words about the work that I do through Abundant Efficiency from Scott. But just a few notes on some of the sample projects. So through the Mid-Hudson Streetlight Consortium, which is funded by NYSERDA, we are helping to deliver LED streetlight solutions to municipalities throughout the Mid-Hudson. Heat Smart Westchester is a program you're going to be hearing about that's led by Sustainable Westchester and partners Association for Energy Affordability, Energize, and others. And that's something that's going to be launching soon, bringing clean energy solutions to communities in Westchester County. And then I'm going to be talking in detail about both Solarize Westchester and Community Solar in this presentation. And that's all work that I'm doing in partnership, again, with Sustainable Westchester. And Sustainable Westchester is an organization that most of you would be familiar with. It's a nonprofit organization that counts almost all the municipalities in Westchester County, including the county itself, as members. And the organization works to accelerate sustainability in the region through a number of different strategies. Promoting best practices. There are a lot of municipalities in the county who have learned how to accelerate their progress in certain respects, and we want to share those lessons learned. Attracting resources that are not available to individual municipalities, and leveraging the market power of this consortium. So some of the key programs of Sustainable Westchester include the Community Choice Aggregation Program, which is known as Westchester Power. This is the very first program of its kind in New York State, and it aggregates the electric purchasing of about 110,000 households and small businesses in Westchester County. Most of the municipalities that participate in that program have opted for the green power supply option, so it's made a dramatic impact in terms of greening the power supply here in Westchester County. Other programs include Solarize and Community Solar, which again I'll be speaking about. Clean Transportation, which is bringing EV charging infrastructure to the county and discounts for EVs throughout Westchester, and important work in waste reduction. So before I describe specific programs that we're working on related to solar, here's just a little bit of information about the solar landscape in New York State. First, it's important to know that New York has set really ambitious goals in terms of greening the power supply in the state. They're looking for 50% renewable energy by 2030 in our electric supply. The state has also created a $1 billion New York Sun program and is pushing forward a whole raft of regulatory changes in order to drive the growth of the solar market here in New York State. And as a result, solar has really grown at a tremendous rate in New York. From the end of 2011 until the end of 2017, it grew at over 1,000% statewide. And in the Mid-Hudson region, at over 1,500%. So we're seeing really dramatic growth. At the same time, if you contrast the goal of 50% renewable energy by 2030 with where we are now, in 2017, 28% of our electric supply was from clean, renewable sources. The vast majority of that is hydro, which you can't easily scale up, and just over 1% is solar. So we have a very long way to go. So I'll share a little bit about some of the ways we're trying to increase the growth of the solar market here in the region. The first is through the Solarize Westchester program. And those of you who live and work in Westchester County have probably seen signs of Solarize in your travels through the county. It's a program that's designed to make it easier and more affordable for homeowners and commercial property owners to install solar on their own property. We work with communities that we select, and then we help them to select a very heavily vetted, competitively selected solar installer. We then launch a time-limited educational and outreach campaign to encourage people in that community to consider the opportunity to install solar. So Abundant Efficiency administers this program, which is offered in partnership and through Sustainable Westchester. And I'm happy that there are many people in this room who have participated in various ways, including Scott and Danny, who helped lead the campaigns in their communities, and Midge, who did the same in Bedford 2020. And Doug Hertz, who's going to be speaking shortly, has been a selected installer for a number of these campaigns. We can also offer the Solarize model to large employers or to membership organizations. And that's something that we're doing currently with the Environmental Committee of the Hudson River Presbytery. So the results of Solarize so far have been, I think, very positive. We've partnered with 22 municipalities. We've had about 600 solar installations, totaling about 6 megawatts of solar capacity. Thank you, Mitch. And as I mentioned, we work both with residential and commercial property owners, and we're happy to speak with you about any interest that you might have in this program. My colleague, Nikki Coddington, there in the back from Abundant Efficiency, helps manage the program, and she's happy to discuss that with you. So we're also collaborating with Sustainable Westchester on a range of other ways to try and bring more solar opportunities to Westchester County. And my colleagues at Sustainable Westchester are offering a range of these services. These include advisory services for commercial property owners to help them assess their solar opportunities, the possibility for expert owner representation through the solar development process, tying in electric vehicle opportunities where appropriate, And we also have a colleague at Sustainable Westchester who's very focused on opportunities related to battery storage and how that relates to solar. And there are new battery incentives that are coming from New York State shortly, so that's something that you're going to see more of. We also are able to work with solar developers to help them advance projects. If you have a project that you're working on in Westchester County and you need assistance of a certain kind in order to move that project forward, we're happy to discuss that with you. We're looking also at the possibility of commercial aggregation. So essentially taking the solarized model and implementing it over a larger geography with a strictly commercial focus. So we have some conversations underway about that. And finally, we also look for opportunities to bring training and peer-to-peer learning to municipal officials to reduce procedural and regulatory barriers to solar development. Leo Wigman of Croton Energy Group led this work in an earlier iteration of Solarize with a lot of success. And we have an event that we're currently planning with NYSERDA and Pace Law School that is tentatively scheduled for November 16th to focus on bringing additional training to municipal officials in Westchester County related to model solar laws and municipal procurement of solar. So now I'm going to briefly focus on a new solar opportunity, community solar, that's available to commercial property owners and to the public. You're going to hear more about this from both of the other members of the panel who are going to be speaking, but I'm just going to briefly describe how it works. So in community solar, you install the installation in an optimal location for solar. A large rooftop can be ground mounted. The energy from that system is exported to the electric grid, and utility customers are then able to subscribe, essentially to purchase a portion of that electricity. And each subscriber has their bill credited for their share of the energy that is produced. New York State is prioritizing community solar as a way of accelerating the pace of solar development and spreading its benefits more broadly, which is really important. And because the solar energy is essentially being sold to retail customers, to residential customers, that means that it's valued at a higher rate, which means there's more economic opportunity for everybody to benefit from. And you'll hear more about that, again, from the other panelists. So there are great benefits to hosts. And again, you'll hear from Gary Flaum shortly about how community solar worked for him. Maximizes financial return. It also enables the hosts to provide subscription opportunities to their community and enables them to help generate local clean energy. There are a lot of benefits for the members of the community as well. Subscribers can see savings of up to 10% on their electric bill for the portion that is coming from the community solar installation. No upfront cost, no panels on your roof, an opportunity for them to support local clean energy. And very importantly, community solar expands these opportunities essentially to everybody in New York State. So with traditional solar installations, you have to be a homeowner. You have to have a roof that's a good candidate for a solar installation. And as a result, many people are excluded and they're not able to participate and to benefit. So community solar opens up the opportunities for everybody. And you'll recognize some of the people on the slide who are subscribers to the project that Gary is going to describe in detail. So, Sustainable Westchester is supporting the development of community solar in Westchester County in a range of ways, including the support to both solar developers and commercial property owners that I referenced. And we are also working to offer subscription opportunities to residents throughout Westchester County. We have a website that's set up for this process, and we welcome people who are interested to sign up and put yourself in the queue so that you're aware of new opportunities as they become available. And there are a number of projects that are pending in Westchester County. So the one other thing that I would say is, apart from these specific solar programs, Sustainable Westchester is really working to bring a whole suite, a whole portfolio of clean energy opportunities to residents and business owners in Westchester County. And the solar programs are an important part of that. I have a number of colleagues from Sustainable Westchester who are here today, who, if you want to raise your hands, Bob and Kathy, Jenna, Virginia, if you want to speak to Sustainable Westchester about these programs, you're welcome. And again, my colleague Nikki Coddington is happy to talk about Solarize. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina. I also want to mention that Sustainable Westchester is a certified member of the Green Business Partnership, so also very green from the inside as well. So thank you, Nina. You're a tireless advocate of clean energy and really inspiration, so thank you. All right, our next. Bring it up first. So as Nina mentioned, Doug Hertz from Sunrise Solar Solutions will be our next speaker. Doug is responsible for technology, design, and finance for Sunrise Solar. He leads the commercial and community solar divisions at his company and is certified by the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, the highest certification in the solar industry. He serves as the chairman of the planning board in Mount Kisco and also serves on the energy advisory panel. Doug is on the boards of the New York League of Conservation Voters, the Westchester chapter, and the Center for Sustainable Design. Doug graduated from Brown University, where he first studied alternative energy under the famed Barrett Hazeltine. So Doug, where are you? Come on up.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. It's just the forward button there.
The forward button. Perfect. All right, let's try the forward button. And I have my little pointer. So thank you very much. Thank you, Nina, and thank you to Danny and Scott for putting this together. So I'm going to focus on the nuts and bolts of community solar. I'm going to try not to geek out too much. I have a lot of slides, but I'll go fast, I promise. And then Gary is going to get into the his experience with his specific community solar project. So what is community solar? Nina touched on it. These are both community solar projects. So this is the Ulster Avenue Community Solar Project. This is that we built 2 years ago. This was the second community solar project turned on in New York State, the first one in Central Hudson. So Jane, sorry we didn't turn it on in Con Ed, being the first community solar project for a utility has its challenges, as you might imagine. We had to work with them to invent the processes under which they would do community solar. So the Public Service Commission required the utilities to hire a person whose job would be community solar, and we got to learn together. We wrote things. So it's 2 years later. There are more projects out there, but I'm not going to pretend it's not still early in the community solar queue. And I think Gary will mention some of that. But typically, most people sort of, imagine community solar looks like this. You've got a big solar farm somewhere. It's megawatts in scale, and it's pretty. You have hundreds and hundreds of subscribers. Well, the reality in Con Ed territory is we don't have acres and acres of farmlands, some of which we could dedicate to community solar. So we look at alternative areas. So we're looking at rooftops. We just turned on 2 what we're referring to as micro community solar projects, micro CDG projects, one in Yonkers and one in Peekskill. They're teeny, but they work, and I'll explain why they work in a moment. So Nina showed a version of this slide. Community solar is very, very simple. Create a solar system in one place. We put all of that, typically we're going to put all of the output of that onto the grid. The utility, in our case Con Edison, is going to allocate the credits to the various members who are subscribing to that community solar project. And those members end up paying the sponsor for at a discount typically to the utility rate. The sponsor is required to organize the membership, and ultimately there is someone, the sponsor or developer or business owner, who is in charge of construction ownership operations. So those can be, the sponsor can be one entity, or the sponsor can be multiple entities. So community solar uses a version of remote net metering. In remote net metering, you put energy into one meter, and what you don't consume at that meter, and typically with community solar, we drop in a new meter that has no consumption, and that energy is fed out to the grid. In remote net metering, you would feed it to other buildings that you own. If you were a manufacturer, you had your corporate office in one place, but your warehouse in another area, you can put it on your warehouse because it's nice and big, but feed some of that excess energy to the grid and have it allocated to your corporate office. With community solar, we don't have to do that anymore. So community solar was allowed about 1.5 years, 2 years ago by order of the Public Service Commission, and it took the remote net metering concept but broadened it to really anyone who has a utility account. So we build solar of any scale at one location, feed that energy into the grid, and then we'll allocate that to satellite accounts. And in community solar, those satellite accounts are referred to as members. So you have a host and you have members. And there is a very specific rule set about how you allocate that, and I'll get into that, and I'll buzz quickly through it. But why do we care about community solar? Why is community solar valuable? Why have we done this? Well, at the same time that New York State allowed community solar, they moved the grid forward to a new thing called the value stack. So for solar projects that are connected behind a meter, it used to be that we had what's called net metering. And we still have that for residential customers. You put some energy into your system. If you weren't using it, let's say you went out during the day, you turned things off, we were generating more energy than the home used or the business used, the meter would move backwards. So New York State decided they wanted a more granular approach to valuing solar. So they did what's called the value stack, and they broke up they tried to understand at a very granular level what solar is worth, and they decided it's worth different amounts in different places, as you could imagine, and they tried to understand what those values were. So there's an energy value, which really has to do with the day-ahead energy markets that Con Ed has to buy into. There's a capacity value. We've decided that solar has an environmental value. It offsets some carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions, so there's an environmental value that should be located with that. There's really, I like to call it a locational value. It's called the demand reduction value, but it has to do with, is solar more valuable in this location than in that location? What are its issues? And then when, in their wisdom, the Public Service Commission said, well, okay, so we've just allowed community solar, but now we're changing all the rule sets. So we're going to create this thing called the market transition credit to basically say, oh, we did this really wacky thing. It's very, very complicated. It would take me 2 hours to truly explain it, So we're going to create a credit that simply moves that energy back up to the residential rate or to the small commercial rate, so that if you subscribe to solar in a community solar project, it's functionally going to be the same value as if you that the energy you're buying at your home. So as a result, what you're seeing is the energy that we send to the grid, it really has a different value than the energy that you're buying from the grid. And that's a major, major change in policy in the United States, but also in New York State. So why do we care? Well, this is why. The value stack created these two differentials. So now and I'm going to take I'm going to jump forward to Gary's project. If Gary fed the energy directly into his meter, he would be getting between, let's say, about 11 cents for the energy he self-consumed to about 9 cents to the energy that he instantaneously put back on the grid. But if he sold it to CDG customers, he's getting nearly double that, or in some cases more than double that. That's why we're doing community solar. From a developer perspective, from a business owner perspective, the energy is worth more. And it opens up many more opportunities. There obviously, the rationale behind it is not because we're making more. The rationale is that it opens up solar to residential customers, to people who couldn't otherwise use solar. If you're a renter, if you're a condo owner, if you don't, we estimate that only about 10 to 20% of people in Westchester could possibly do solar. So there's this 80 to 90% who are functionally disenfranchised. So what are the rule sets? Well, let's talk about it. Community solar, any utility customer can be a member of the project in the same utility and ISO zone. And Con Ed has 3 ISO zones, right? H, I, and J. Oh, I'm sorry. That changed. So the rule set changed on Friday. Who knew? So in case you don't think this is a fun business to be in, last Friday the Public Service Commission allowed what's called interzonal crediting. So Gary's project, which is located here in Montrose, when he put his project online, he could only sell to those customers. As of Monday, as of this week, he can now sell to all those customers. So it's a moving target, and it's a lot of fun to stay up on all of this. But the reality is, it's a wonderful system, and the changes that are being made in the affirmative. They're positive changes in response to very public processes that New York State has put in place. So there's been lots of back and forth. We've been commenters on this process, and it's trust me, it's a full-time job. So each project has a sponsor who basically who can own and operate the project, organizes the membership, and interfaces the utility. And Nina mentioned Sustainable Westchester is one of those entities that can do the interface. Project Economics is also here. Nick, who's in the back, is a company that just does subscription and customer management for community solar projects. So they're another way to go about doing that. The sponsor provides the utilities with a list of members, and at this point in Con Ed, as we know, it's a spreadsheet. It's a little Excel sheet. I've got these 10 members, here they are, blah, 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 and this is what they get. And as we mentioned, any utility customer can be a member. The only rule set, aside from that, is you have to have at least 10 members, and each member has to get at least 1,000 kilowatt hours, which is a really teeny little bit. We're talking about $20 worth of energy a year. I mean, it's not a significant amount. And you can't allocate more than 40% to sort of large commercial customers. But as we saw, large commercial customers are less valuable to a community solar project than residential customers are. So typically, this is a non-issue. And the terms of membership are completely open. So you can, while what we're seeing in community solar are subscriptions, basically you put your community solar project together and you just allow people to subscribe and sell them energy at a discount. That's the typical thing. But across the country, there are more types of ownership models. You can set up a cooperative to have a group own these things, and you can actually purchase things. You can do leases. You can do anything that really you want, that as long as the consumer protection laws are obeyed. But what we're typically seeing is you just have subscribers and you're selling energy at a discount. And the other thing is it has to be located behind a non-residential meter. So not unusually, that doesn't typically matter, because when we put in a community solar project, we're generally dropping in a brand new meter that has no use at the site. So what do the incentives look like? The incentives for solar are kind of fun. There's a 30% federal tax credit, investment tax credit, with no cap. If you spend $100,000, you get a $30,000 tax credit. You get accelerated depreciation. So we're currently in a 100% bonus depreciation year, 2018, 2019. That means that you're basically expensing the entire project in year one. So you get this tremendous sort of paper loss that happens immediately. So it's a huge value. NYSERDA gives an upfront incentive in Con Ed territory that's 60 cents a watt, which depends on the size of your project, can be 15 to 30% of the cost. New York State has a sales tax exemption, so we don't pay sales tax on solar equipment. There's a New York State property tax exemption, so each town, each taxing authority is allowed to opt out of that, but in Westchester, nobody has. So it's one of the few things that you can do to improve the value of your property without raising your tax assessment. So there's a 15-year exemption on that, and 15 years from now, that exemption would run out, but typically the solar system is then gone past the midway point in its age. So while there may be while they're allowed to tax you at that point, its value is going to be significantly less. And because we're talking about Con Ed, which goes into New York City, there's a New York City property tax abatement program. So if you own property in New York City, actually 20% of the project will come back to you over the first 4 years if you don't have other property tax abatement programs in place. So absolutely remarkable incentives for solar. I mean, we typically see 65% of the projects are paid for by various incentive programs over the first 1 to 5 years. So what do community solar projects look like? Well, they're typically over 200 kilowatts, so we need a decent amount of roof space. But the reality is, my rule set is wrong, because we just turned on, so Gary's project is a little bit smaller than that. We just turned on 2 micro CDG projects, which are about 30 kilowatts in size. And I'll talk, if I have time, I can talk about what those are. You can do them for condos or co-ops, for HOAs. They can provide low cost to their residents because they already have a set subscriber base. They know where that energy is going, so much, much cheaper. Co-ops, in particular, can use PACE financing because it's a methodology for them to finance off their balance sheet without having to do much in the way of assessing their cooperators. And building and landowners also have another choice. So if you have a decent sized roof, there are companies like mine and others who will simply lease your roof. So we have the capital, we have the knowledge and the processes in place to be able to build and own and operate community solar projects. So in many cases, we'll just offer a lease to that roof, and then the building owner does not have to get into, can I use the tax credits, can I do this, how am I going to finance? And that's a model that we're seeing with not-for-profits and municipalities. So the typical issue with a municipality that we're seeing is they can't use tax credits. And also, if they build a project, they are subject to prevailing wage and lots of other rule sets. So Mount Kisco, for instance, just leased its landfill as a community solar project to a third-party developer. That developer is going to build, own, and operate. Mount Kisco gets lease revenue from that, and they've guaranteed that they'll make the first subscriptions available to residents. So it's a way for municipalities to benefit from solar without having to sort of become solar experts, if you will. It's a fantastic process. And we're working with multiple building owners across Westchester, leasing their roofs for systems that we're going to be building, owning, and developing. So I touched on PACE financing. I'll give it a quick shot just for building owners. PACE financing is an acronym for Property Assessed Clean Energy. And the idea is that the municipalities can offer basically a loan to you to do a renewable energy project or an energy efficiency project, and you pay for it as a special assessment on your taxes. So the really cool thing is it's off balance sheet for your business. You don't have to go into your core borrowing. You can get a 20-year loan that's essentially just, based on, the equipment on your roof. The value, you can assess up to 35% of the assessed value of your property. So very, very large loans are available, relatively low rates. And it's not based on your credit score or company financials. It's basically based on the value of the property and your history of paying your taxes on time. It's a very cool process. And we're approved PACE finance lender associates, and we can help you sort of manage that. So that's simply one interesting publicly available method, and almost all the munis in Westchester are offering PACE, not all of them. And Bob Fishman in the back with the Energy Improvement Corporation is the entity and is, that does the PACE lending for New York State. So Bob's there if you have questions about PACE. Just going to talk about a summary of approaches for who might want to do community solar and how you do it. But for us, it boils down to a very simple thing. If you can use the tax, if you have a tax appetite, if you can use tax credits and you're not overwhelmed by depreciation. So we see a lot of real estate companies that have so many projects that while they can use the tax credits, they have so much depreciation losses from other properties that they're going to have suspended losses, if you will. They're not going to be able to use the depreciation anytime soon. Those are situations, so if you can use both tax credits and losses, you're going to make more money owning it and operating it yourself. If your tax situation doesn't work that way, if you're not for profit, or if you can't use tax credits immediately, you're going to do better probably finding someone else to lease your roof and just getting a lease payment. A commercial building can build it, finance with PACE. In many cases, they'll have to put next to nothing down or nothing down. And as Nina mentioned, there are wonderful advantages about marketing yourself as green. You're now the host, of an important community asset. So there are tremendous social values, tremendous marketing value, environmental value, as well as the economic value. Co-ops, condos, HOAs can do this. And as I mentioned, building owners can simply lease their roof or land. So what are the challenges? Well, I mentioned the value stack and all of these sort of geeky things. When community solar was adopted, the Public Service Commission said we're going to break it into 3 tranches. So the first groups will get 100% of what's called net energy metering. It's essentially the value that a residential customer is paying, this full value of electricity. And we're going to break it into 3 tranches. The second group will get 95%, the third will get 90% of that. And as you can see, in most of the rest of the state, those things happened immediately, so fast that they had to open up Tranche 4, and Tranche 5 is now being considered. So around us, we have NYSEG in part of Westchester, Orange and Rockland right across the river, Central Hudson right above us, closed, almost closed there, and well into Tranche 3. Con Ed is at 8 megawatts of about 500 plus that's allocated to it. Well, why is that? Because we don't have multi-acres of farmland where we can plop down these, 2 megawatt, 3 megawatt, 5 megawatt solar farms and just do them. So we're doing it little by little, rooftop by rooftop. We actually have one of the largest systems that we're in development with in Mount Kisco. It's a 1.3 megawatt system on the ground. It happens to be at a cemetery. Go figure. And it's because land is so valuable that you have to find land in its final and highest value. And that's going to be brownfields, landfills, and go figure, cemeteries. And the rest of the projects that we're working on are all rooftop. So, this is one of the challenges for the rest of New York State, but it is not a challenge for us because Con Ed, very valuable, very expensive energy, but as you can see, it's wide open. Other challenges, tax credits. 2018 and 2019 are the last 2 years for the 30% federal tax credit, and then it declines. It has this declining scale. So a month or two ago, the IRS came out with what are called safe harbor provision rules that will allow you to, if you get a project in development by the end of 2019 and meet certain basic restrictions, you can build the project in 2020, in 2021 even, as long as you've started the process, committed a certain amount of money to it, et cetera, and you can still get that 30% tax credit. But again, you have to start the process. So we think that this next 15 months is going to be really the most exciting for community solar because of that declining tax credit. And another challenge, and this is not meant to be political, but this is real, is trade policies. In the last year, the administration has put tariffs on all solar panels coming from abroad. They've put tariffs on steel and aluminum, which is the things that we put solar panels on and make them out of and frame them with. And they've now put, as of yesterday, 10% on every other product coming out of China. So many of the electronics and things like that, that'll go up to 25%. So trade policy is a very significant factor in solar from a cost perspective. Luckily, New York State is one of the friendliest states in the nation for solar policy. So we do have these wonderful incentives, and the support from NYSERDA and the utilities, and Jane can attest, are very, very forward thinking. We don't have the battles that we have between utilities and solar developers that you have in other parts of the countries. But there are lots and lots of challenges, but it's a fantastic opportunity, and we're really excited to be part of solar. So again, thank you for having me. I'm sorry if I geeked out a little bit too much. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Doug. That was very informative, excellent presentation. And actually, we're going to have a few minutes for questions for all of the speakers at the end, or you can grab them afterwards out here, because we know that he covered a lot and you might have questions. All right, so. All right, so we're going to meet Gary Flaum now, who's the president of Quality Circle Products. Upon graduating from Cornell University, Gary took his first job teaching science at Eastside High School in Paterson, New Jersey. 3 years later, he started a career in manufacturing that in 1989 led him to purchase a tag and label manufacturer in Montrose, New York. That was also the year he got married to Marta and started their annual fall visits to Acadia National Park in Maine, where they became members of Friends of Acadia. Gary's interest in science, business, and nature was a natural takeoff point for his decision to be a pioneer in New York State's community solar program. So, Gary, welcome to the stage, and he's going to tell us more about the project we've already heard a little bit about. So, welcome.
Hello. So, hi, Nina. So I'm annoyed now, because one of the things that I did not like about my community solar project is I could not put my house in Briarcliff on my community solar project in Peekskill. So would you put me on the waiting list now, Nina? So, okay. Doug, thank you for that information.
I'm sorry.
So which is the button I push? The forward button? All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it was like to do it. That's my roof. There were two parts of the roof. One was a metal building, and the panels go on very easily and nice on that part, and the other was a flat roof where they had to go on little racks. You'll see that later. Let me tell you about who was involved, a couple of my experiences, and I guess the main thing that I want to point out is that it's profitable. And it may be interesting to you that I'm sort of retirement age, but that's really a good age to do these things, because you'll see it's a nice income stream, and I don't know how many of you have thought about your retirement in the last period of time, but it's not so easy to get a nice income stream for a good number of years with the current interest rates. So when it comes to pushing or selling something like this, don't ignore us old guys. We're actually a good a group that needs these kinds of investments. Okay, so the cast of characters was me, and provided the space and the money. Sunlight General was my developer, general contractor, and operator, and we'll look a little more about them. Westchester Power, Sustainable Westchester, that's really your bit there, Nina. They serve primarily as customer acquisition, but it's also a tremendous source of information in putting all the pieces together. There's, as you can see from the presentations, there's a lot of different organizations and people, and you can get very overwhelmed. Nina makes it so we didn't get overwhelmed. And finally, we have a company called Ampion, which is a middleware company, and they're primarily software. And what they do is they connect Con Ed and us and the customer with a bunch of software. And I can actually show you a bit of that, which I will try to do. The surprises. Well, tree trimming was actually the biggest surprise that I had. It turns out cutting down some trees for solar in Cortland is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And in Con Edison contacts, I want to be fair to Con Edison. I actually have heard there are much worse groups to deal with, but it can be challenging, and you'll see my recommendation with Con Ed is make sure you get some local contractors who have their contacts with Con Ed and can call people and know who to call. That's a key thing there. So, oh I had a movie in that graphic. It's not working. Oh well. Anyway, you can see that I have that on every single tree on the property, when we went to cut them down, they needed a survey, and every single tree had to be tagged. So you can see the little metal tags on the trees there. And I remember when I drove through the Black Forest in Germany, they had that. But we're not the Black Forest, and we're not a national park, and it was strange to me that we had to put metal tags on a lot of dead trees and things like that that are on my scrubby little property. We had to do that. We had to get a plan for what trees we were going to cut down, and for every tree we cut down, we had to replace it with 2 new trees. And as I said, half the trees were bug infested and dead, so that was a surprise, both in time and money. This was my little joke there as to what it struck me the scheduling tool must be for Con Edison. But as I say, it's a big company. To be fair, they had storms and things like that, which were a little more important than my little project at the time. Certain things had to be done. So my main point is that it's profitable. And I'm actually sharing with you our numbers the way they are. I'm not sure really what to point out. If you look at those categories as they go down, they're pretty self-explanatory. Doug talked about a lot of the investment tax credits and the rebates, and you can see your investment of $353 right off the get-go really was only $171,000 of dollars coming out from our pocket. This is a better shot at what the years look like. I guess I would like to have a pointer. Are those numbers readable or not?
Yes.
I think you guys can read them better than I can. I guess you have the kilowatt hours on the top there, and then the revenue. Thank you. Which button, Doug?
Sorry, it's the star, and you just have to keep your finger down.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. So there's your income, yes? The revenues. And there's your net income. You can see that first year you get a lot of money back from stuff. But there's your return. And I think that's really the key numbers is you get a net return of around 12%. These numbers won't be the same as anybody else's numbers. They're just my numbers. But if you need a reason why to do the project, I think that was my reason. And these are actual numbers now. I mean, obviously the production over the years aren't actual, but the costs are actual. So I'll answer questions. I hope that if people know somebody who wants to do this, that they bring them over to my factory and show them if they want to. I'm more than happy to go over and talk to anybody who's thinking about it. Doug, I'm happy to do it with any of your customers as well as Sunlight General's customers. My interest is in solar. And I do want to show you what the roof is doing right now. Okay. So that's actually a live feed from Ampion, who's the company doing the monitoring and the billing. And you can see that we only get electricity during the day. And some days are better than other days. But it's kind of nice to know that anytime I feel like it, I can shoot up on my computer and take a look what's going on. I think I can actually go panel by panel, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that's really it. I'm going to wait for questions.
Yeah, so if we have a few minutes, left for questions. So if the speakers want to come and sit at the table there, there's a mic. We typically have a mic to pass around. Danny, can you help with that? I just want to say it's amazing what's going on in that little corner of the county, which is actually where Danny lives. She's one of the subscribers of your project, Gary. And as many of you know, that's also where all of our trash goes to get burned and turned into energy. Community solar is happening there. You might have a commercial composting site in that area soon. So it's a really happening place in terms of energy. It's amazing. So does anyone have any questions that they want to ask the speakers?
This is just a practical question for Gary. Gary, what was the condition of your roof before you started the project? Did you have to, what was the condition of your project, of your roof before you started? Did you have to do any maintenance or fix the roof beforehand?
Great question. I was lucky. I had replaced the entire roof 2 years before.
Okay.
But yes, you would have to.
It was great timing.
And if I could just add to that. So typically, a solar system has a lifespan of no less than 25 years. So it behooves a building owner to make sure that their roof is in good shape before you put a solar system on. Because the last thing you want to do is put it on and 5 years later discover that you're really at the end of life for that roof and you have to go through the expense of taking it off, putting it back on. So if you have a community solar project, you're disrupting your subscriptions. You're going to have to explain what's going on, as well as just an expense that you don't need. So you want to make sure that your roof is in good shape, and so you're going to either, in Gary's case, have a new roof, which was a perfect moment, but there are, under the leasing scenarios, there are possibilities for exchanging some of those lease payments for upfront payments to replace or repair the roof, make sure that it's going to last that time. Or as a building owner, this is just a good time to look at doing that. Using some of the financing methods like PACE, you can wrap a roof replacement. If you're going to do it yourself, you can wrap a roof replacement, assuming that all the numbers still pencil out, or a good portion of that roof replacement into a PACE loan. And again, if you have questions, Bob Fishman is in the back and can discuss that.
Who else has a question?
This should be on. Okay. I'm a subscriber to the Quality Circle project.
Thank you very much.
I think they're all here.
And I subscribe to other projects, like, I'm in Portland, I heard that you have a peak skill project or any other projects going forward, or can you only be a subscriber to one project?
So the current rule set requires that you can only subscribe to a single community solar project. So you want to make sure.
Right, it's going to change next week.
It's not one of the discussion items that the Public Service Commission has asked, because essentially through a lot of the projects, what the attempt is to get you to between 95 and 100% of your use through that subscription, which is one of the reasons why larger projects are useful. From and Nick and people from Sustainable Westchester can talk about that, because it's easier to allocate, in a very large project, to make sure we're getting to close to 100% of your use. But from a cost perspective, the utilities don't want to be allocating a little bit of here, a little bit of there. It's really an administrative decision.
Midge, you have a question?
I'm loud. So first of all, I really want to thank our hosts and the panelists. I think this was a great presentation. I have a big list of questions here. First of all, I'm hoping that if you're willing, maybe your presentations could be available online, because there was so much great.
It's recorded, and all of our presentations are online.
And so I run an organization that does a lot of community-based environmental work, and so I'm really wondering, from a community level, how can a community help create demand for this? And I'm going to just read you my list of questions, and you can choose which of them you want to answer. Or so I'm wondering, is there a map of where the community solar projects in Westchester are? Are they all fully subscribed? Nina, I'm curious to know, how big is this the queue for demand, and can a community fill up that queue and really demand community solar? I'm wondering how the residents of organizations that are part of the CCA can leverage that to bring community solar to their communities. And just finally, Gary, you mentioned the tree issue, and I know, Doug, you're having a tree issue right now in Mount Kisco, and is there an opportunity to create something that sort of expedites this, all the information that would help expedite projects going forward, to share information? So I apologize, I know that's a mouthful, so I don't know if I left you guys anything to say, but thank you again.
Weigh in on the tree issue for 1 second, because I live in the town of Portland and I love them and very happy that they care so much about the trees and that we have a very solid tree ordinance. But what I think about, Gary, is that you have saved all of these residents from having, I don't have to cut my trees down because of what you did. And every subscriber, and the reason that I can't have solar is because I have too many trees, so you multiply that by all of the subscribers to your roof who probably have the same situation because of where we live. So in essence, you have saved so many trees by allowing us to subscribe to your rooftop. So I just think that it's a point that you guys might be able to raise to municipalities in the future.
So I'll give you a metric, because we're having this discussion in our planning process for our ground-mounted project. An acre of solar in Westchester, if you took a forest and cut down 1 acre of forest and planted solar in that 1 acre, you would be, according to the EPA's greenhouse gas equivalencies calculator, you would be offsetting the same amount of carbon dioxide as 438 acres of mature forest in the US. So even if Gary's roof had been a forest, and there's a ratio of no less than 438 to 1 in favor of solar. So not that trees don't have other values, and of course everyone will argue with biodiversity, all these other things, but on a pure CO2 sequestration metric, 438 to 1 forest. If you cut down a couple of trees around your perimeter, the numbers go up 100-fold. So
Right.
the numbers are
I
really
want to, because Midge's questions were amazing. I want to add one on top of hers. No, because I'm thinking that Diamond Properties, because there are existing large-scale solar arrays out there. Can Diamond Properties, for example, in Mount Kisco, decide that they want to become a community solar project? Can an existing project become a community solar project?
Well, they use net metering to power their other facilities, like dentist office that they use in Mount Kisco. So they're already using that power in a way to power their own community or their portfolio. But they could probably be a good candidate because they have the roof space.
Just want to throw one more thing at the tree issue. One is I was not objecting. I was simply suggesting that it was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it. And again, without taking any position, my installers said, and you may know this, that in the state of New Jersey, there's a state law that specifically says you can cut down any tree for a solar project without any penalty. So I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but
and until our power lines go in the ground, you're helping keep the energy on as well, because less trees means less power outages.
Do you want to answer some of Midge's questions?
Yeah. So thank you, Midge. And Bedford 2020 does such a remarkable job mobilizing the community around sustainability opportunities and issues. So you're so well positioned to help generate interest for community solar within the community. So with the regulations changing, as Doug indicated, anybody within a utility service territory is going to be able to sign up for a community solar project within that territory. However, it is possible for instance, if a municipality is procuring solar that's going to be a community solar project, they can indicate a preference that the subscription opportunity be made available first within the community. So it is possible, even though it's now allowed for people to subscribe over a large geography, it is possible to set up preferences either by geography or in certain cases their efforts to make sure that community solar benefits are reaching low-income people. So it is possible to design a subscription approach that meets the interests of the host and whoever else is involved in the project. And yes, we would love to have additional people continuing to sign up for the queue. There are a number of large projects that are in development in Westchester County, and we're going to be looking for a lot of subscribers for those projects.
Yeah, and Midge, I think just to add a little bit more, because I know you had a rash of a host of questions. I don't remember all of them, but I think from a community perspective, so NYSERDA has been circulating a model solar code, which is an attempt. What happened was 2 years ago, community solar got allowed. All of a sudden, various solar developers, property owners, landowners decided that this would be an interesting idea. So a lot of applications were put in, and many communities were caught off guard and put in solar moratoria. And NYSERDA has attempted to help push that forward by creating a model solar law that communities can adopt. There's a person at New York Sun, Frank Mace, whose job it is to interface with the communities to help them understand what proper solar permitting could look like. Right now, because of our project in Mount Kisco is taking the lead in, Mount Kisco has adapted, not adopted, but adapted the New York State Model Solar Code to be more suburban friendly, because it was largely addressing issues of the conversion of agricultural lands to solar and the issues surrounding that. So Mount Kisco is trying to adapt it more to a suburban setting, which would be more appropriate for Westchester, and it's going through its public hearings right now. So I think we're at a moment where education is really, really critical. If we have advocates in the community at various towns who would want to kind of push this forward, it's going to be tremendously helpful because there are lots of obstacles that we still see, and as you well know, and we need all the friends we can get. So I think we're at a moment where, just as we were a moment maybe a few years ago where residential solar needed an educational push, that Solarized did a huge job at providing, we now have that same moment sort of for community solar, and the push really needs to be sort of with the municipalities to modernize their zoning codes to understand what this could mean. We're going to see, in Con Ed territory, they created an adder for putting solar on carports because they realized that there's not that much land. Roof space is what it is, but people are reluctant to give up their roofs at times because a solar system is going to last for 25 years, and it's hard to make a 25-year commitment sometimes. So in Con Edison territory, we see parking lots is really a great resource. They're already developed. We've already got cars there. So putting covered structures on with solar makes a great deal of sense. So NYSERDA added a little incentive bump for doing that, but God forbid we start to build these in any scale. The communities don't have zoning codes that are properly aligned to that.
I have one question here first. Hi. Question for Gary. I was wondering how the project started, if an organization approached you, or if you had the idea to do solar.
I think it started because I wanted to put it on my home, and I had too many trees. I had some really big old oak trees and so forth. So then I thought about putting it on my roof, and I think Lee is the fellow who came, one of his representatives, and told me about solar, because I was just thinking, community. I was just thinking of putting it on the roof of my factory to use the electricity in the factory. So, is that enough of an answer?
That's great, thank you.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Leo, you have a question?
So, I have a question.
Oh.
You talked about putting solar arrays in cemeteries. How are you setting that up in a respectful way?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I understand. So the cemetery that we're working with actually approached us. We were presenting, because I was consulting with the village on solar for its landfill. So I was presenting at a public hearing, and it happens to be the next property over. So Oakwood approached my firm afterwards, and they're a not-for-profit cemetery, and what they've discovered is different from many of the Catholic cemeteries. Some of these not-for-profit cemeteries have seen a tremendous change in the business. People are not interring as much, and they're using cremations. So they have a huge amount of land that's fallow that they don't expect to be selling plots on for 30, 40, 50 years. And they, like every not-for-profit, need to have operating income. So they had a piece of property at the very, very back that's sort of next to the Metro North station, tracks rather, that's not anywhere near sort of the current area where there are grave sites and use. Was where they don't expect to be selling grave sites for the next 50 years. So we spoke with the New York Cemetery Board, and we can provide, what's nice about solar is it's a passive activity. Once we build it, there's really no activity that happens at the site. It'll be, it's fenced. We're putting up screening, trees and other sorts of things. So it'll be sort of an area at the back of the property And this will allow them to have income for the next 30 years, and then our lease agreement is that we remove it at the end so that it can go back. And that's a requirement that the New York Cemetery Board requires, because this is land that has to ultimately be used for its intended purpose. So this is looked at as a temporary, even though it's 30 years, you know, that's temporary from a cemetery perspective.
A quick question. I too am a subscriber to your rooftop. Thank you. And that prevented me from having to cut down any of my 80-foot maples, so thank you. And I do know that that process was made relatively seamless through Westchester Power and Sustainable Westchester's process for intake for customers. But Doug, as you alluded to, New York is relatively solar friendly now, among the most solar friendly states, with policies coming out of the Public Service Commission. So my question is really that about whether we have any prognostication on when we can go to single billing for community solar, so that we currently, just so people understand, when you have a community solar project, you're still going to get your Con Ed bill, which will be smaller than it would have been before, and you'll get that bill will be pulled out of your bank account if that's how you pay on whatever billing date you have with Con Edison. And sometime later that month, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you'll get a second bill, which will be smaller than what you would have paid Con Edison from the entity that's the solar farm, you know, developer, owner, operator. And you've got to sign paperwork for that second entity to be able to do that, which is a long single-space contract that I just didn't read. I just signed it because I trust you guys. But so for the consumers out there to participate, single billing seems to be where we want to go. And I know we've made that recommendation to the state. Any word on when that might happen?
So I'll jump in if you can.
That was a great explanation of how it's done, so you need somebody to explain it.
So I actually had this conversation right with Nick from the power market right before this. So the Public Service Commission has requested that the utilities look at consolidated billing, as they currently do for ESCOs. And they continue to push that forward in every order that they've been issuing. So we thought we were going to be relatively close to that happening. As Nick pointed out to me, the minute that it was suggested that this could happen sooner rather than later, there's been a push for other types of energy efficiency and any other thing that you could do through Con Ed's billing to then also be subject to consolidated billing. So his estimate, because he's very, very close to this, was between 6 months and 6 years. That was this morning's discussion. So, and I'll
give you my planning tool.
So it's a, you know, one step forward, 2 steps back. Conceptually, I mean, and Jane probably knows this, there are really only a handful of community solar projects that are operating in Con Ed territory, and in many of the many of the utility territories, Con Ed has one person, and this is done by hand at the moment. So until we hit scale, it will be prohibitively expensive for a single utility to do that. But that being said, that is on the agenda. We will expect a year, 2 years from now to hopefully see consolidated billing, because I think you're going to see, as Nina's alluded to, a rash of projects coming online, you know, in the next, within 2019, probably within, you know, up through 2020. And I think that push will certainly help convince the PSC and the utilities that it's time to add consolidated billing.
Yeah. So what I've heard about timing is that it's expected to come next year, but I think that estimate of 6 months to 6 years is probably a more grounded way to think of it. But everybody recognizes that consolidated billing is key to really unlocking the potential of community solar, because the fact is, it is a cumbersome subscription process and an unnecessarily complicated payment process.
You guys made it as easy as it could.
Yes, I appreciate that. Correct, exactly, yeah.
So it's 10 after 10.
Right, we're going to wrap it up now. So any final thoughts, or can we, I think what we'll do is we'll end here, and thank you all for coming, and thank you to our speakers. Let's thank them all once more for being here. And I know that All three of these people are available for questions. You can get their contact info from us or from them as we close up here. But thank you all for being here today, and we will have another one of these in December, so hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.